Okay, so it is 6:01 by my clock, so I will call our meeting to order. And first, we'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I know we might be a little bit out of practice with the all virtual meetings, but I think it'll all come back to us. With that, we're going to go to our vision first we're going to go to our meeting guidelines and safety protocols. So the purpose of this meeting is for the board to conduct board business. The meeting is open to the public and recorded. You can listen to all past board meetings by visiting board docs through our district website. This meeting is being presented via Zoom and not appropriate for audience members to interrupt board business or ask questions during the meeting. And agenda items will be addressed as listed in the agenda. And obviously we don't need to go over emergency exit protocols or anything because everybody has their own exits if there's an emergency. So with that, our vision and mission statement. Director Halverson, would you care to read our vision and mission statement?
Sure. Our vision: our community inspires and prepares each student to thrive. Our mission: in connection with our community, the Sequim School District empowers staff to inspire hope and provide flexible, innovative learning opportunities in a safe and respectful environment so that each student thrives.
Great, thank you. And our land acknowledgement: the Sequim School District administrative and school buildings sit on the ancestral land of the S'Klallam people. While S'Klallam traditionally come from one nation, history has led to the formation of three sovereign S'Klallam tribal governments: the Lower Elwha S'Klallam tribe located in Port Angeles, Washington, the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe located in Sequim, Washington, and the Port Gamble S'Klallam tribe located in Kingston, Washington. The district's primary partnership is with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. Today, the tribe and the district share a partnership that includes official consultation on program and funding changes that may directly affect American Indian and Alaska Native students, as well as holistic service planning for students to remain successful through their educational journeys. And I'm very much reminded of our partnership with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe, particularly at recent events regarding our ceremony about the stadium and the field, of course, both partnership with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe as well as the Alumni Association regarding recent events. So just makes me very mindful of that partnership, which we appreciate so much. So with that, that brings us to 2.01, approval of the minutes. And I believe board directors were all sent a copy of these, as well as they were uploaded and emailed, I believe. So if you've had a chance to review those, I'd be happy to take a motion. Director Jeffries.
I move we approve the minutes from September 6th.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you. Was that Director Halverson?
That was just me. Yes.
Okay,
I
great.
didn't raise my hand.
Yeah, no, I think we're okay with raising hands on for first and seconds on items, motions and seconds, since there's just four of us. So, okay, any discussion? Director Jeffries?
Yeah, I noticed that the calendar, the dates at the end were incorrect, and I sent an email to Tracy. So the minutes do not reflect accurate dates for board meetings, or didn't. And also some previous minutes had a calendar that was not right. And at least on my copy of it, that hasn't been changed. So I move to amend the minutes to reflect accurate meeting dates for board meetings for the rest of the year.
Tracy, do you see any concern with just getting that fixed as a housekeeping issue?
Absolutely. Thank you, Director Jeffries.
So
Okay,
we will get it corrected, and assuming there's no objection to passing them with that amendment. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes with the corrected housekeeping suggested changes that Director Jeffries proposed, please indicate by, is everyone logged on to board docs, or do we want to do it the old fashioned way? Tracy, any preference?
Old fashioned would be lovely.
Okay, we can do that. So please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right, that is all of us. So that motion is approved. Oh, Director Johnston?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, I'm having a problem with my camera. And so I ordinarily would not just be on here without being on the camera, but I got a new camera to replace my old camera, but it's not, I haven't gotten it figured out. So I apologize for not being on camera.
No
I just wanted
worries.
to.
Thank you for mentioning that. Okay, that brings us to 3.01, changes or additions and the approval to the agenda. And I actually do have a change to the agenda based on email correspondence that I received over the weekend. And I would like that is a discussion needed amongst the board regarding a board director. So if we could please add that, Tracy, as an item for discussion under board business, just discussion of email correspondence. That would be appreciated. And with that addition, I would be happy to, I'll wait and let her finish. Do we have a motion?
I move
I
that
move-
we approve the amended agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Director Johnston?
Aye.
Thank you. So that was all of us. So that motion is approved, or agenda is approved. Moving right along. That brings us to our consent agenda. I'd be happy to hear a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, those wishing to approve the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, consent agenda approved. And that brings us to our public comment 5.01. And I do want to point out we had we had taken some time away from live virtual, or I should just say live public comment, simply because we had to really revisit and do some research regarding how public comment was proceeding, and it was based on the fact that we had many public comments that were very specific to staff members, employees of the district, and it was actually very concerning because it's not really an appropriate venue for those concerns to be aired regarding at a board meeting. If those need to be brought forth to the district, we need to make sure that those types of things are brought directly to the office of superintendent. If it's aired at a meeting, a lot of times our staff members come in the next morning, have no idea, and start hearing about it from colleagues that it was mentioned, and it doesn't offer them a chance to respond or anything. So it is a matter that the board takes very seriously. So I would ask that the public, if they're making a public comment, that they don't use public comments as a way to bring up concerns about employees, because if we really want those matters addressed, we want to go through the appropriate channels to address, and that would be by contacting the office of the superintendent. So I would ask that all would respect that, and so that way we can have the public comments live portion available, because of course the school board does want to hear from the public regarding other concerns that might come up. So with that, do want to mention expectations for public comments. So it's a 3-minute period for public comment. So each individual does have up to 3 minutes. Because we're in a virtual setting this evening, we will ask when folks, if somebody would like to make a virtual public comment, you would just raise your hand, and virtually raise your hand, if you will, which are the icons on the lower portion of the screen. And you will be unmuted when it is your turn to speak. And we'll do our best to call you in the order of your raised hands. Commenters will be allowed audio privileges. And we ask you to please state your name and address and affiliation when speaking. And with that, there will be a timer also put up just to give you that visual notification of the 3 minutes. So with that, if there was anybody wishing to make a public comment this evening, please go ahead and do so by using the raise hand feature. And I will pause for some wait time, an appropriate amount of wait time, just to see as folks navigate technology. Okay. And so that will, not seeing any hands go up. Oh, hold on. Director Jeffries.
Yeah, if there are no public comments, I noticed that we got a couple of emails from people that didn't realize that we were going to go virtual, and we're asking, how could they connect? I didn't respond, but can you explain to the public community why we are virtual tonight?
Yes, thank you, Director Jeffries. There was a sort of a scheduling overlap. We're actually having an open house at the high school tonight, and that would be with announcements and that sort of thing. So holding it in the library where we normally have it would not have worked very well. So we did a virtual only meeting just in that regard. The library is really the high school library is really the only spot that we have that would make sense to have it in person right now. So we had to do some quick adjustments, and so yeah, that's why we just opted. We considered changing times, but that can be just changing days and nights, and sometimes that can be disruptive as well. So this kept it on the same schedule. So I am glad we took an extra moment because it looks as if we do have a member wishing to make a public comment. Angela Fennell?
Yeah, it's Vanel.
Thanks.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah, I was actually going to comment on that exact issue. I'm actually sitting here in the parking lot at the school because there was no notification of any kind that it was going to be virtual. So I just wanted to put it out there on the record as, you know, that it's frustrating as a parent when we are just recently had a meeting about communication with the school district and with the superintendent, and to have this event follow up with poor communication. It's pretty frustrating to have it be not notified at all that it was supposed to be virtual instead. And, you know, everybody's time is precious, and to carve out time and people watching our kids, I just wanted to express it's disappointing.
All right, thank you for bringing that to our attention. And yeah, we did have on our agenda and other spots the reason why it was being posted virtual, but we can always strive to do better and can communicate different platforms and do better. So I do apologize for the inconvenience there, and we will look to how we can communicate things better. Any additional public comments? Director Jeffries, do you still have your hand up on purpose, or?
We're just going to say, it was announced on the district Skyward. It went out, I think, to probably all parents or people in the Skyward. So we found in the past that not everybody connected to Skyward, and so that might be something to take a look at if there's a better way to communicate these kinds of changes, but to reach a wider audience, but I don't have a good solution for that right now.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd mention it, that it was published.
Thank you, Director Jeffers. Okay, that's going to close the portion of public comments, and that's going to bring us to our student board representatives. We've been without reports of our student board representatives for a few meetings now, but I am glad we're bringing that back. And I believe that we are going to start off with Caleb, if I'm not mistaken. Is Caleb on? Yeah, I see him.
Yep, I'm right here.
All right, welcome, Caleb. The floor is yours.
All right. First, I'd just like to say it's a pleasure to be back. I know that we've had a pretty good start to the school year so far, especially at the high school. I know we had like some really good events. We had a couple of link meetings and stuff. And also the leadership has been doing a good job. And we've also had a pretty good cook-off with the sports for the season. I know a lot of kids are feeling optimistic. Like for tennis, we unfortunately had a cancellation for one of the games, and the other one was a loss. So I also was able to check, and we had a home game today, and I went there after my cross-country practice, and it seemed like we were doing pretty good. Hopefully we won that. I know that our football team is looking really optimistic to like our homecoming game and stuff. I think it's in not this Friday, but the one after. They've lost to 2 so far, but they were against really good teams, and they're feeling pretty optimistic about the rest of the season. So let's hope that goes well. And also, I know that our swimming team, our girls, has done really good. They've had some good performances in several district times among their team. They're really excited for that. And I think overall, we just have a really good positive energy going through in this school year. And I know a lot of kids are excited. For the cross country, we've also had some really good performances. I know like a couple students are still hoping for some progress on the track, and along with the football field and for football and soccer as well. But it's not too big of an issue right now. We're just hoping that we could get some progress or negotiations on it in the future. And then for our girls soccer, they've also been doing pretty good with 1 win and 1 loss so far. And I think that overall, we just had a really good start to the season. Academics are doing well as well. And just overall, I think we have a pretty good school year lined up for this year, and everyone's excited. And that's all I have to say today.
Great. Thank you, Caleb. And we have our newest student board member. Is it DESA? Sorry. We have, might have you on mute. Usually down in the lower left corner of your screen. Sometimes you have to hover it over it for it to appear. Okay. No worries. If if you're able to get it working, yeah, I'd be happy to come back. So yeah, no worries. So we will go ahead and proceed with the next item of the agenda, and I will check back in with you to see how it's going with the microphone. And 6.01 on the agenda, or I'm sorry, 7.01 on the agenda is the capital projects update with Chris. Chris, do we have you on tonight?
Yeah.
All right, welcome.
I might get my camera turned on. All right, can you see me?
We can.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you having me here tonight. It's been a couple months since I've given you an in-face or image-to-image update of the capital projects levy. Wanted to actually take a little bit of a different approach tonight and the information I'm providing both to the board and to the community. I wanted to kind of recap where we're at and a number of the actions that have happened here in the last few months, especially over the summer. One of the items that we've had a conversation about previously is reprioritization of projects, which is constantly being looked at based on understandings of both urgency, need, what the scale of the projects are, as well as the cash flow for the levy and how we can best manage those projects over the duration of each phase. So currently where we're at in regards to committed projects and contracts, we're sitting at 95% complete drawings for the loft and the elevator addition to the district office. That work is waiting final review in order to go to permitting and out for RFP for contractors. The portables at Hull and Haller have been signed off and confirmed by the fire department. That project was completed in July. Some delays in permit sign off, mostly because the fire department is currently quite short-staffed and a lot of action going on within the city of Sequim. We had Sequim Middle School and OPA's roof recoats start in late August. Sequim Middle School was completed about the 8th of September and OPA was completed about the 14th. So right now we're in the middle of closeout and sign off for it, waiting for final documentation, including the 20-year warranty. And that should give a long-term that was, instead of just being a patch, that is a full recoat of those flat roofs on both schools. So that should be a long-term fix with a 20-year warranty. And that should be done here within the next month. So we can sign that portion off. The archiving of all the projects, one of the things that we did on the backside was to actually digitize and scan all of the archive files back from 1935 all the way to the current drawings and latest remodels, including the kitchen, the gymnasium, as well as the cafeteria at Sequim High School. So we had that project completed, which is allowing us to present to out of area designers the actual documentation, which is actually helping reduce costs on the bids that we're seeing come in. It also helps tie in with Jamie, the new coordinator for the facilities. Me and her are working to make sure we can actually bring the way archiving is done within the school district up to modern times on the, just kind of a slight side project, not really specific job, but it is going to assist us here over the next 4 years. We had to complete site surveys for all of Sequim High School for a number of the projects that are going on. The surveys for the school dish for the site for the high school as well as for OPA and a couple of the other facilities hasn't been completed since 1998 or 2006, depending on which one you look at, because the majority of the work hasn't been in the grounds. So a lot of that work is being done to allow any of the projects that have to do any underground to move forward. The fiber optic infrastructure working through BOE has been progressing throughout the summer. It's, I believe my understanding is we're about 80% complete. There's a number of minor fine tuning items that have to be done at each of the facilities, but all the major runs are done and it's interconnecting all of the schools. So that was a major accomplishment to allow a lot of the other IT projects to start moving forward. The voice system modernization, a lot of the phone systems have been replaced, upgraded, programming is in the works and being completed. I know I've spoken to a couple of people within the district on their new handsets, and things seem to be going well. I haven't heard any concerns other than on speakerphone, a little bit of a delay, but that's to be said with any large scale system. Now, those projects together, one of the things that is a little intangible and for people it's hard for people to understand, the commitments for those items together right now is in the neighborhood of $1.5 million. So as of right now, we've committed and or moved on a little over what was expected to be half of the tier 1 budget or anticipated revenues. And it's a little easy to not see that work going on. So I want to make sure people understand that the OPA and Sequim Middle School roofs, for example, were almost $700,000 worth of work. Now, that being said, we have additional funding coming in and we have additional commitments and a progress forward. The two items that came out to bid in August were the modernization projects for OPA's HVAC as well as Sequim Middle School to get those moving into design. Well, I've said before, Sequim High School is going to be a multi-phased project just because the amount of work necessary to do there is going to displace too many kids to allow that to be all done at once. And that'll be part of the discussions during the design phase over here over the next 6 to 10 months. The OPA project is actually going to be, we're looking to award together for efficiency, but we're looking at both projects as separate tracks, and that'll allow us to fast track and move OPA, which is a much smaller scope of work and very specific, at a much more accelerated rate than the complexities of Sequim High School. Specifically to address the concerns, I don't believe we'll be able to get equipment completely replaced here by this winter, but we're going to try to at least get things going in to next year so we can try to help alleviate the concerns with the heating in the gymnasium that the students have dealt with for years. So those are both going right now into design, or we're looking at award of design. We'll be reviewing that here shortly to determine the architect that'll be moving forward with that. Couple of projects that have been on the horizon that we are going to be looking at is Helen Haller's fire alarm. The project was slated to be upgraded in tier 2. That got moved to tier 1 due to the age of the system and the concerns of its lack of expandability and the fact that the portables have been added on to it. We need to really understand what that's going to mean, so that way we can really start working on getting the expenditure and meeting the needs to overhaul the entire system in a timely fashion. So that is going to be a complete replacement of Helen Haller. We're going to try to work through design, hopefully get that solicited and executed here in the next month or so, and look to try to get this into contract design to look at that work going next summer. That will allow us to try to get that whole overhaul done and allow bring that system up to current codes. The security fencing at OPA, we met with CT&E a couple of weeks ago and to start discussions on what those projects will mean. That's going to take quite some time to really vet out what we're going to be doing with those funds, which is actually a tier 3, tier 4 project, but that really gets allows us to get an understanding of the programs and the changes in the expectations and requirements through the state for continued education and what value it has to the school district, including with the changes in dynamics of the population. So once we had that conversation, we started talking about OPA security fencing. Specifically, there's been a number of incidences with vandalism and we'll call it leaving trash around, some squatters in the area, and we want to make sure that that is actually taken as a higher priority. So that got moved forward. So conversations and layout of that is starting to happen. It looks like we have a decent plan that's actually going to come into fruition, and that should be able to move rather quickly, depending, of course, on lead times and materials specific to what it is. So that we should see some real movement here in the next month. Now, that being said, there's been a lot of conversation and brought to my attention about moving forward with a number of the IT projects that were originally slated a little bit later in the into phase 2 and moving them forward, specifically the surveillance and access control programs for the entire school district. So we've taken a look at it, taken a look at the prioritization of the other projects that were on hand. The timetables specifically for Sequim High School, because that is such a large project and it's going to have such a large cash demand on the funding for the levy, that actually we believe can be pushed into tier 2, and we could move a commitment for tier 1 for the security systems, surveillance, as well as the access controls. Conversations have already started between myself and Bo, getting feedback from Superintendent Nichols as well as John McCandy, starting to have conversation as to what this means. I understand there was a security, I forgot what the meeting was called, but there was a forum. There was a security forum last week. So a lot of that information is starting to get to me, so we can start to really look at how to address these concerns and what kind of timetables we can go for a permanent long-term solution for all of the schools, or potentially shifting it into prioritization of schools independently under the umbrella of a larger full district upgrade. So those conversations are starting. We should start seeing some movement here shortly. I believe we're trying to get back together this week and continue those conversations. A couple other items that I've been hearing, having small discussions on, but I know I need to dive a little bit more is in the conversations. Caleb mentioned the track, the stadium. I know I'm glad the dedication happened this weekend, and that was a wonderful thing to hear. Is to find out really what the long-term goal of not just the track, but the field, the stadium. We had in there the stadium restrooms, concession, and a number of items to make this a fully functional facility for years to come. We need to look at a couple of other items that we are currently in tier 1 that we're going to be pushing back. A couple of the sewer connections I think are going to take less priority over some of these items, and we're going to have to really look at how to manage them within the revenues and expenditures within the levy. But as of right now, that's a general overview of some of the major things that have been happening. I'd like to open the floor to any questions. See, Director Jeffries has his hand up.
Yeah, I want to thank you. That's probably the most comprehensive, detailed briefing that we've got, and a lot of things to consider there, and a lot of projects going on at the same time, and it's juggling lots of priorities. One question that came up at that security forum with the parents was about project management. I guess that's, for lack of a better word. Can you give a little background of your background, and also a little bit about Wenaha for people who may not know for sure?
Of course. So Wenaha is a construction manager who represents agencies, owners. About 50% of our work over the last 10 years has been in the K-12 education sector. We have a number of offices spread throughout Oregon and Washington, in which we're working on, I think, 6 different school districts right now, on top of SQUIM. My background specifically is 20 some odd years as a construction manager in commercial general contracting. I've also been a subcontractor in multiple trades, including mechanical and plumbing. Over the course of that, I've built a number of projects, a number of buildings with very complex security and alarm systems. I have worked on development of programs for prisons, for example, hospitals, controlled environments. Specifically in SQUIM, I actually worked on the development on implementing the security protocols for the Mac Clinic, or the Healing Clinic over with Jamestown, as well as schools and lost my train of thought for a second. Schools as well as various clinics and universities. I've worked on multiple universities as well as K-12 over the last 15 years. So my background is pretty much in every trade of the industry. I have built everything from Costco's down to dental clinics. I have built large scale warehouses all the way over to I've done transportation centers, schools, kitchens, hospitals, casinos, restaurants and such. So I'm very versed in a lot of the technologies and a lot of the systems that exist within the industry. And it constantly keeps me on my toes to keep in line with them. But I work with designers now. I work with designers and as well as contractors, as well as the agencies to make sure that projects of what we have an idea, they get through to implementation, development of the project needs, development of the program, implementation to design, implementation into construction, and delivery of the project to whichever client I'm working for. In this instance would be the SQUIM School District.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Director Johnston.
Thank you. Chris, I just am wondering
if you can tell any parent. Sorry, I've got two things going on here. Anyway, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Pat.
Okay. To have a concern about safety based on the events of the last few weeks, what specific items on our project list you think you can move up and how that will enhance security at the school?
So one of the things that I'm talking with the IT department as well as administration, with Superintendent Regan, is there's a complexity to doing an entire system upgrade across the entire school district. However, that being said, if we have a program that's involved and we have development of a program that we understand, there's a way to implement small portions of the scope to increase the security right now until the full system can be put in place. So one of the things that we're looking at is how do we determine where the most need is. For example, if it's SQUIM Middle School, for example, where does the most value gained to do immediately ahead of a full system in place? What kind of measures can be taken? A good example would be you could have an independent server recording for just some limited devices without having the full system in place. We're going to be looking at a number of items like that and to understand what we can do now with a much faster pace than going through a full systems design. Now, in regards to concerns for safety, absolutely. I have 4 children in school districts over in Bethel. So I take it very seriously when the students' safety is, where student safety is concerned. Now, there's ways to go about this to accelerate. What's the right way to put this? Apologize. There's a way to do work and move the projects forward. That's one of the reasons why we moved forward the entire surveillance system, which was supposed to be from 2023 to 2024. It's now that the fiber optic network is in place, there's a lot more capability within the school district's mainframe network in order to actually implement small portional changes. The one thing we don't want to do is do something that we put up a couple of cameras, but there's really no means to manage and monitor it, even if it's not on the full scale that the final system is. So we want to make sure that we're putting in something that's functional and not just there. If we're able to monitor, to report, to call on authorities as necessary, and be under that. Now, it's very likely it won't be the final system, but it will be a interim measure. Now, what we want to do is obviously put that within the grand scheme of the full system. So if we have an idea what the full system is, we can choose to look at the technology and figure out what's the best way to implement incremental changes while we develop the entire system.
Thank you. Is there anything else besides the cameras and things? Particularly, I think Superintendent Regan Nichols was talking about the just the door locking, and it's so complicated because we have so many buildings and so many people going back and forth all day long. Is that something you're looking at as well, or what can we expect on that?
We are looking into it, but to give you an example of a similar system I've installed in a school district. So when you put together an access control system, a lot of people think immediately, oh, card readers to get into a door, or something to scan so it unlocks the door. But usually what people don't understand about access control systems is response as part of the access control system. So for example, if there was an emergent need, that whether or not there's from the office that they have the means to lock down individual buildings, or I'll just use an individual building. Squim High School is a lot more complicated with the multiple buildings it has. But so can you lock down it when you have a known outside threat without having to run around and go to each door and lock each door, right? So access controls that's under its purview, where you develop hardware that's electrified, it's interconnected, it's speaking to each other, and it has a main controller. So you can deal with things like in a fire alarm, for example. Some of the times, one of the problems people have, also just your security issue on, say, a fire alarm, is releasing all the doors, releasing them and unlocking them, so people don't have to be concerned that they can't get out. So the access controls portion of the levy was to bring the entire school district up to those current standards and those available technologies. So one of the things we're looking at is, we create a whole program, can we implement these changes in smaller areas? A lot of these you can still put in, say, a controller and a number of devices on a few specific locations, and then they're all integratable and tie into the full system as it gets installed. So that's something we talked about briefly starting last week, and I'll be continuing those conversations with Bo.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And President Pickens, may I just bring up a point, and Chris can elaborate on it. With the fiber optics that have been put in place as the basic spine of the system, we do still have all of the cabling that needs to occur at our sites. And some of that cabling is quite old and antiquated, of course. So that work also needs to be done. Is there any comment you'd have on that, Chris?
That is correct. So thank you for bringing that up. I had forgotten to mention that. So one of the second portion of the network infrastructure is doing the inside of the schools. So now we're to a point where we have connection between each school. Now we have to go out to every device. That means all the access controls, all of the cameras, all the security devices. So that way they can be reporting all back to a centralized location. In the instance of the stopgap measures, well, stopgap isn't right, the incremental measures, we can do specific runs and design those in anticipation that they'll be part of a larger system. Good example would be when you have a computer room, not to get too technical, but a little bit technical. When you have a computer room, you have a rack that has a certain number of slots. That each one of the slots is a device, say. We can get the slot, we can get the rack, choose to use, say, 8 of 24, knowing that the 16 will come later. So even though we don't have the entire system run, the entire infrastructure run, we can run very specific lines. It's unfortunately doing that is less cost effective, because then you're going back to the same, you're going back on the areas you worked on. But that's something that we have to look at what makes sense. Now, I've already started with the superintendent Regan, as well as the IT department, conversations about bringing on a contractor just to run those infrastructure lines under a fast track, so that way they can actually be there and available instead of having to go back. It's a little bit more cost effective, but we don't want to sacrifice necessarily time if it's not of a real major impact. If we're talking about, for lack of better words, it's 8 devices on one building, it's probably not enough to worry about waiting to get the full system installed in order to just get the lines run for those 8. The infrastructure that Bo's already installed as part of the fiber optic gives him the means to, should give him the means to land there, land and tie in. All of those little details are stuff that we're still hammering out.
Thank you for that that elaboration there, Chris. And yeah, and I appreciate you working with Superintendent Nichols about seeing what sort of timelines can be adjusted to continue to make these a priority. That was certainly something that was communicated to us at the public forum as a community. So we want to make sure that as a board, we're doing whatever we can to help with things. So, and do want to put out as well for any members of the public, if you do have more specific questions based on feedback that Chris has given. Chris is just presenting to us here as a school board, but if you have specific questions, please go ahead and route those questions directly to Regan Nichols, our superintendent, and she'd be happy to get more information if that's what's required, or do some further investigation, whatever that might be, if there's further concerns out there. So anything else, board? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate it. And we'll have more information to come.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Well, have a good evening.
Thanks. Okay. We have next our enrollment and finance report. And we have Darlene on.
I'm here.
Hi, Darlene.
Hi. All right. First, I'll go over our budget status reports for August 2022. And I would like everyone to remember that our books are not closed for the school year of 21-22. So these budget status reports are estimates until we actually have all of our documentation finished and send our F-196 to OSPI to be approved as a year-end document. So if we can do our that one right here, let's see. No, let's do our August fund balance. Let's go back over. Yeah. Okay, so these are our ending fund balances for our 5 funds. And so right now, an estimate for our general fund is $2,433,720.93. Our capital projects is sitting at $1,938,377.83. Debt service fund at $70,396.67. Student body account is at $379,139.59. And our transportation vehicle fund just got its depreciation payment. So you can see that $270,000. That goes straight into the transportation vehicle fund towards the purchase of new buses. And so our ending fund balance right now is $1,120,990.29. That being said, in our general fund, as I said, there are still some invoices that have not been paid, that the materials and supplies have been received as of August 31st. So we will still be paying invoices through September and into October. We try to get them all in by the end of September, but it usually doesn't work. So it's usually a mid-month October of accruals for accounts payable in the general fund. And then on the revenue side in general fund, we still have grant claims that we're doing in September that are for August. And then in October, any of those final grant claims that we're doing, and those are all part of our accrual. So you can see that we can't have a definite ending fund balance until we do all those adjustments. In capital projects, I budgeted for our beginning fund balance for 2022-23 to be just over $1 million. I put $1 million, knowing that it would probably be just over $1 million. And in the report that Chris Marfori just gave, you talked about the roof projects at OPA in the middle school and the $700,000. And so some of that will still needs to be paid for. Projects that were finished by August 31st, we are still paying those invoices. So it will lower the capital projects fund ending fund balance. It will not be close to $2 million. It will be closer to $1 million. The rest of everything is probably pretty much true to what you see right now. There might be a few more things for ASB, but probably not much. And that's kind of where they'll land. Transportation vehicle fund will be what you see, and so will debt service fund for sure. I don't have anything else to say about the ending fund balances for these accounts at this time until we just finish all of our adjustments for year end. So we can go to our, let's see here. Yeah, that'll work. So this is also what you would see on a budget status reports, and this just breaks down what our revenues and expenditures are for the actual month of August, as well as year to date. And then anything that I had budgeted, it just shows what is left in those balances that we haven't received yet. So you can see that what we budgeted for revenues was $48,278,32, and we've received year to date $44,749,154. Remembering that I had to budget all of our ESSER dollars in both revenues and expenditures, and so that accounts for part of that difference. We wouldn't receive the whole $48 million because we didn't use all of our ESSER dollars. You use your ESSER dollars and then get reimbursed through the grant system. Expenditures. Tracy, can you scroll over to the right a little bit so you can see percentages? Okay, there you go. So you can see we received 92, almost 93% of our budgeted revenues. And then down under expenditures, you can see we've expended about almost 95% of what we budgeted for expenditures. And that also, we budgeted to spend all of the ESSER dollars, knowing that we would not spend all of the ESSER dollars because we still have next year that we can use our ESSER $3. And so we have them budgeted into the 22-23 school year. All right, let's go to the next. Yes. So this one is just broken down so that you can see our current month of August expenditures and salaries. They're broken down by certificated, classified, benefits, all of the supplies and materials that we have purchased, along with contractual services, and then year to date what that looks like. and still coming up to about our 95%. You can see that there's still, you can see a lot of the outstanding encumbrances are just in the supplies and materials and things that we just need to finish paying for in the 2021-22 school year. Probably will not be all of the $1.3 million, but that's what was encumbered. And then all of those purchase orders will be closed out, and all of the outstanding encumbrances will go to zero when we close our books for 21-22. Okay, and then our enrollment. So you can see our enrollment that I budgeted was based on the actual enrollment that we had, that we knew was coming back in, that we knew the students that were coming back in September, and we just didn't have a lot of information, just actual numbers. So we budgeted for 2,384 approximate FTE, and for the month of September, it's at 2,510 FTE. So that's great news. And we like our budgeted FTE to be close to what our enrollment is, but there's just no way to know how many students would actually enroll from what the number was that we had the end of June and in August. So it's broken down by school building there, FTE wise, and then actual head count. And I have to say that I'm also, it's been nice to hear that the ridership on our buses is increasing every day. So I'm waiting for numbers from last Thursday and Friday, and they've just been giving me numbers all along, and our ridership is increasing, which increases the funding that we receive through transportation. So we're on hopefully this is a good trend, and we just keep moving upwards. All right, do you have any questions about the budget status reports? Okay, I wanted to just go over our 5 funds really quickly. And the reason that I want to do that is I want everyone to be really clear about the use of funds in each of these different accounts. And as we close our books for 21-22 and start seeing budget status reports for the 22-23 school year, then everybody will be really clear about what these accounts are used for. And so if you ever have a question, you can go straight to OSPI's website and look at the accounting manual for public school systems, and then it talks about the different types of funds. And so you always hear me talking about the 5 funds. And so I'm just going to give a little overview of what these funds are used for. So our general fund, that's our biggest fund. It's used to account for all the financial resources, except that the ones that are required to be accounted for in another fund, which are the other 4 funds. It's financed from local, county, state, and federal sources. These revenues are generally used for financing the current, ordinary, normal, and recurring operations of the school district, such as programs of instruction for students, food services, maintenance, data processing, printing, and pupil transportation. All school districts must have a general fund. It would be like yours and mine's regular checking account compared to a savings account or a money market account. The general fund cannot be used for those purposes which funds have been established for specific activities. The only thing is in Washington State, the general fund may pay for ASB expenditures, even though there's an ASB fund. So ASB is the only special revenue fund. It's financed in part by the establishment and collection of fees from students and non-students as a condition of their attendance at any optional non-credit extracurricular event of the district. And so the ASB is student dollars. And I know you've heard us say over and over, this is a highly audited account. when they come to audit all of our books, they look at ASB because it's the one where there's the most risk of loss of dollars. Capital Projects Fund, it is used for, within Washington, there's a couple funds, but this one, you can do major construction of major capital facilities or assets. You could acquire land, you can purchase equipment, conduct energy audits, make capital improvements. They're cost effective in certain conditions. So right now we are in the remodeling, replacement of roofs, carpets, service systems, technology. Those are all including Capital Projects Fund. Capital Projects Funds may not be used for basic education, for those things that I just listed off in about the general fund. They're completely separate and are only used for a specific parameter of items. So Capital Projects Fund is the third account. Transportation Vehicle Fund, you've heard me say this, we've got this $1.1 million in our Transportation Vehicle Fund, and it's only for the purchase and major repair of people transportation equipment. So right now we do have this amount of money in there, and we are on a depreciation schedule of the current buses that we have. And once they start coming off of the depreciation schedule, that's when we start looking at purchase of new buses. We don't keep a lot of extra buses in our fleet. We usually try to auction them off as we need to. I think we have a couple that are used for spare parts. One or two that are extra buses in case something happens to one of our buses, but that's it. We don't want to acquire a lot of extra buses in transportation. Our debt service fund is our fifth account, and that is for the accumulation of resources for and the payment of long-term debt and for principal and interest. And that's why that $70,000 just is earning interest, but sitting in debt service fund. We may not move that to another fund. And so as the district were to pass a bond, we would use the debt service fund to make those payments for our bond. Usually we get a bond to build a new building. So as we start to think about that, that's when we would use the debt service fund. So all these five funds are all completely separate, used for separate items. We do not intermingle funds. As monies come in, they are put into the appropriate fund and used for the items that I've listed. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that they each have their own purpose, and there are specific rules, and the accounting manual does specify those rules. All right, any questions about that?
Any questions, board? Okay.
All right, that's all I have for you this evening.
All right. Thank you very much, Darlene. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me just see. We can pull the agenda back up. Actually, before we continue with the agenda, without objection, I want to go back to a previous item because I believe our student board representative may have their microphone fixed or might be working, but we want to check. How are we looking with that?
Yes, I think it works.
All right. Is it DESA? Is that what it is?
DESA.
DESA. Thank you. And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I apologize for the earlier situation with the mic. Thank you all for being very respectful toward me, and it's an honor for me to be here. Let me start off by saying that. So we have had a busy and a good start of school. It started with the introduction of the 9th graders. The link leaders and the staff of the school did a great job welcoming the new freshmen, On September 9th, we had a school assembly where participation was seen from all of the students from all the classes. The class officers of each grade and the 4 new teachers got introduced to all the students of Squim High School. Everyone seemed very happy and glad to have a normal start of this school year. Something that's going on right now is that everyone is getting ready for the homecoming week. As you might know, we have voted for the homecoming royalty, and those students seem very excited of the activities to come. I know all leadership members, including me, are working very hard for the homecoming spirit week with getting ready the decorations of the hallways and decorations for the homecoming dance. Everyone is looking forward for the football game on the 30th of September and for the dance, which is in October 1st. Other than this, everything else is very chill around the school, and everybody seems to be focusing on themselves and having a good year. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, and welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, and I believe that brings us to 8.01, superintendent report.
Well, thank you very much. As a segue from DESA's report, I'd like to say that I had the pleasure of meeting with both of our student board representatives, and we will be moving forward this year with some different types of presentations than you may have enjoyed in the past. So I'll be keeping you up to date on what you can expect, and I thank both of them for their enthusiasm and their interest in communicating to you what is important coming out of Squim High School. So we look forward to that. First of all, President Pickens mentioned this at the top of the hour. The renaming ceremony for our stadium and field was a wonderful event, and I think it does embody the sense of partnership that we wish to have with our community. The Alumni Association, of course, so supportive toward developing the story of Myron so that we could spread that and let everybody know of what a special man he was if you hadn't had the chance to know him. And the tribe in coming and really bringing ceremonial aspects to that event was very special. And I look forward to where we go now with the stadium, track, and field, as we already have spoken about with the capital project. So we have that as top of mind. The safety and security debrief and forum was, of course, well attended, but what it also did was give us a notice that the community, especially parents, expect a lot from us. And I hope that you could hear tonight that we have already taken information from the forum and moved forward with it. So I have to thank Chris Mafori because he is a wonderful partner. He understands the word urgent. He also understands the word systems because we want what we do implement to really work well for the future and have all of the aspects that an educational environment needs. An educational environment, safety-wise, has so many aspects to consider, from, of course, student safety that we all think of, but staff safety and staff use of the system. So we have already had a couple of meetings. We meet again on Wednesday. Things are moving forward. School reopening, you heard that our enrollment, of course, is up slightly, and we're very pleased with that. School reopening continues to be smooth throughout the district. We have had some aspects of professional development around social emotional learning, discipline practices, and we look forward to continuing to implement that so that our students feel like they are responded to, the school is a safe environment and orderly and respectful. So kudos to our administrative team and our teachers, along with our support staff who are on the ground with these aspects. And just so everyone knows, we also have been meeting with our transportation department so that we can integrate administrative service from our buildings with our bus drivers. And that is going to continue in the next 2 weeks as well. So great there. Like everyone to know that listening tours are coming up this week. On Wednesday at 5:30, we have a Zoom listening tour just like this. So it will be exciting for people to come out, and that's open to anyone who would like to come out and give their perspectives around the future of our school district. from families, community members, staff members. We'll look forward to that. And then Thursday evening at 5:30, we'll have a listening tour that's in person at Sequim High School for the same type of group. Anyone from our community, staff, families that are interested in coming out to share. And of course, we all recognize we will be facilitating these events with questions that are prompts so that we elicit information. We're going to, of course, have safety as one of the items that we talk about, but there are so many items to talk about in the school system, from the academic achievement to opportunities for students, what we prioritize to be teaching. So I look forward to people participating. Speaking of participation, we do have CTE, Career and Technical Education. We established a working group last meeting. So I have met with Principal Ned Flater as a facilitator for that working group, and we are getting together our proposal for our first meeting, hopefully in the first week of October. So more to come on that. District committees are coming together, and we are targeting Thursdays as a day that we could have for different committee meetings on different weeks. So we have our education committee, as you can see here on this, for the second Thursday of every month at 3 p.m. We're timing it so that any educator who'd be interested in participating in this committee could attend. We also have the policy committee at 11 a.m. on the first Thursday of every month, so we can start churning through the policies that need to be reviewed, revamped, or revised. And then also on the second Thursday of every month, the facilities committee. And as Kaylin brought up, he urged that we pay attention about the track. We certainly will be, and we'll be bringing the track advisory committee under the umbrella of facilities. So that's where that conversation will continue to take flight. And then, just so that we let the community know, our strategic plan still has the rest of this school year, and then it needs to have been revised. So we're going to start the work of looking at the plan that you already developed and considering what the strengths of that plan were, what the strengths of that process was, and decide what process we'll launch this year so that we're ready to have a new strategic plan by the end of the school year in June. And so that first strategic plan meeting will happen as a board workshop that you've asked for, and that will happen next week on the 26th in a study session. So that will be at 5 p.m. We've slated up to 2 hours for that study session, and certainly it would be open to the public if people are interested. In closing, I'd like to say that I feel as though I've met so many staff members, and some of the ways I'm getting to do that are quite unique. I've certainly been able to meet with bus drivers and hear that this year has gone very well from their vantage point. We have a lot of traffic improvements out in front of Helen Holler. Being around the schools, I went into the middle school cafeteria last week, and DESA said it was a chill vibe at the high school. Well, it's also a chill vibe at the middle school at lunch anyway. Really great to see that kids are back, really communicative with each other and seemingly happy to be there. We will continue to work on education that is engaging to students. That is certainly the #1 goal that we have. And our education committee that will launch on Thursdays with Marin will be a wonderful way for us to start talking all things academic. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Nichols. And since you did mention the forum that we had last week, I wonder, would it be appropriate if any of the board members had any specific feedback? Would that be an appropriate time right now, just so you could hear any feedback that the board members had regarding that?
It'd be excellent. Thank you.
All right. So just want to open it up to the board if they have any specific feedback regarding that session. I know I have some feedback as well, but I'll open it up first to see if anyone has anything. Director Halverson.
Yeah, I really first want to thank Regan for her very articulate and thorough explanation about how things work. And everyone who was there, I think, worked very hard to listen. worked very hard to be honest and frank about concerns. And so I thought it was a really vigorous, fast-moving conversation that we had. And I think that is a great way to start the year, even though it was under kind of painful circumstances, having to really think about the safety of our buildings and with the graffiti incident, that we turned that negative moment into, I think, something positive to move forward with. But I also wanted to just say quickly, just as a comment, that I'm appreciative also that we're moving forward with these safety measures with the cameras, et cetera, and fencing, and trying to make sure that our students are physically safe in their buildings. But I hope that in doing that, we're not going to neglect the harder work, which is culture and working with students and working with staff to make sure that we find ways to reach all of our students and help them emotionally invest in our schools, that we aren't at risk for something that has taken place in so many schools across the country. I am not sure myself that cameras do very much to prevent something like that. I don't think there's evidence to suggest that they do, but I do know that there is some hope there in how we reach each other and how we connect with each other, that we can build a strong community, not just a hardened school, that it's really all about that. And I know that did get addressed a little bit at that meeting, but I just wanted to put that front and center for our concerns. That's my comment.
Thank you for that. Would it be okay if I respond? Okay. One excellent dovetail to your point is that at our kickoff day with staff, we were able to introduce that there will be 2 different module sets that are about social emotional learning, assets-based relationship development, and those will be paid opportunities for our staff, any staff who wish to attend. And so we are promoting those very, very significantly. We're inviting people to come. We actually have reached out to our bus drivers to consider coming as well. And we hope that our staff have the time to take stock in it and recognize their hard work by having them be paid for it too through a grant. So I think it might hit the exact priority you're asking for, Dr. Halverson.
Thank you.
Director Jeffries?
Yeah, I would piggyback on what Director Halverson and Superintendent Nichols said, and I was very impressed with the concern, enthusiasm, energy in that particular forum, safety forum. Even those that got up and were critical of how we've handled things, I think they all offered a little bits of wisdom that we ought to take seriously and consider. And the community group that was there did respond favorably with having another session similar to this, to that one. And I think it needs to be ongoing so that we can talk about these issues. We also needed to clear up some misunderstanding, misinformation, or clarify some really complex issues. But I think by and large, the community was there. Their hearts and minds were in the right place to provide safety for our kids. And like I said, there was some wisdom there that we need to take a look at and take advantage of, I think. So I appreciate all the people that showed up, and I really appreciate the superintendent and how she handled that meeting. It went pretty well, and I think it was constructive in positive ways. So thank you.
What I would add is, well, it's certainly echoing what's already been said, but I was glad that we had that forum, and I was really impressed with the community coming together, being able to express their views and their priorities. This is definitely a priority on my mind, as I know it's as the rest of the board, as it relates to safety. I have a 9-year-old attending Helen Aller, so I can appreciate where everyone is coming from, and also just from my perspective with also being an educator. I know that it's unfortunately in this day and age, thinking about worst case scenarios is on all of our staff's minds. What would happen if, and how to handle that, and that's just it's unfortunately the situation that we're in. But I want to mention to you, Superintendent Nichols, thank you for mentioning the relational aspects that we're still going to proceed with, especially with all staff. I think it is certainly important that we talk about that, because sometimes you mentioned bus drivers as an example, but I think it's such a great example, not to discredit any other staff member, because they all play a part, but sometimes it's that first face you see and that last face you see every day that is so important. But those connections with those other adults, the staff members we employ, it could be somebody, could be a paraeducator, it could be a secretary, it could be a teacher. All of those relationships matter, and is certainly a part of that, in conjunction with many of the other things that were discussed during the forum. So thank you for allowing those voices to be heard, and having that forum. And I want to also thank the community for coming together and being able to express that in a very productive way. Okay. All right, if there's no other questions, I think we will go ahead and move on to our next item. We have a 9.01. We have emergency procurement approval. Before we take a motion on this, Superintendent Nichols, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, thank you. So in school district purchasing policy, there are many required steps so that the review of any purchase is thorough, competitive, and open to all. In our purchasing policy, as is typical in most school districts, there is an emergency clause, which does relate that in unforeseen circumstances that are considered to be at an emergency level, and I'll explain how I think there's a nexus here with us, we can have a waive for bid requirements, which just would simply allow us much flexibility around the degree to which we develop an RFP and send it far and wide, and go through all of these steps that actually Chris was speaking about earlier tonight in relation to the projects that have already happened. So the nexus here is that we do feel a sense of urgency around our safety and security measures and the capital levy project allowances for that. And because of the recent issues with the graffiti threats and the feelings of vulnerability that we heard so clearly at the community forum, I'm bringing this to you tonight to consider if the board would have an interest in waiving the bid requirements for the capital project security requests that we will be moving on. And you heard Chris Mafori speak about the fact we need a system that's going to work for the whole district and integrate, but there are some more immediate interim steps we could be taking, and having allowances that waive the bid requirements could be helpful. It just allows us flexibility. It does not mean we have to activate that measure.
Great, thank you very much. We will go ahead and, well, first, I guess we'll I would entertain a motion on this, if somebody would like to make a motion for approval.
President Pickens, I will make a motion that we agree to waive the bid equipment as determined by the superintendent and our project manager And I think that's adequate. If you need more, let me know.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion and or questions that maybe Superintendent Nichols could answer? Dr. Jeffries.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a question about the term emergency. I once had an aide that had a sign above her desk that said, "Poor planning on your part is not an emergency on my part." And I'm concerned that we don't start defining everything as an emergency. And if this is something we need to do right away, then we need to do it. And I fully agree. I guess I'm concerned of how much money we're going to spend and or what we're going to spend it on. I can think of a couple of emergency situations that occurred recently that I would say need to be addressed quickly, but I'm not sure that's what you have in mind or if there's something else. So just a little clarification on emergency.
I appreciate the question, Director Jeffries, and I'll weigh in a little bit, but I'll certainly let Superintendent Nichols weigh in. My understanding is this does not change the parameters that are already set with the capital projects levy. Those are still 100% in existence, which does determine the exact amount that is spent. Superintendent Nichols, is that consistent with your understanding as well?
That is true. We are, of course, limited by the amounts that we have dedicated to the projects. We can do some shifting, but I think with the emergency, we're focused more heavily on the interim solutions, because we have had situations where we have needed even some level of surveillance. And so we would like to have that security measure taken forth. I don't think that it means necessarily that we need to pursue the full district solution as an emergency measure. That could be a planned capital project with a phase-in attribute.
Does that answer your question, Director Jeffries?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I can just think of a couple of emergency situations that happened recently where students were put at risk, and maybe what was being thought of is what can we do immediately to reduce that risk. But so I guess I was looking for something more specific, but maybe this isn't the time to talk about it. And I look forward to seeing what the plans are. I plan to support the motion, but I just had some concerns.
Well, to get closer to your point about specificity, I think specificity is challenging right at the moment because, as Chris mentioned, we are evaluating what solutions are even out there that can integrate with a larger system, because we would prefer that an interim measure that we might put in would be money well spent that could possibly integrate later on, and we're still figuring that part out. I also would say that if there is an interest of the board to put some parameters on this vote, if there would be a limit to an expenditure, or you would like it to focus on one aspect, that is certainly an amendment that could be brought to the motion.
Thank you. Director Johnston.
Thank you. My understanding from what Chris said, you know, my understanding of what this would be looking to do is to maybe, but we can purchase part of a system that will integrate in the end with the full system. I mean, nobody wants to go buy some things now on an emergency basis that then we have to get rid of a year from now because they don't work with the final system that we purchased. And so it's my understanding that what we're talking about is, some targeted equipment, maybe some trouble spots that are concerning and that they'll be able to activate fairly quickly. That, as he was saying, there will be some additional cost because, all the install won't be done at once. We'll be doing some install now and some install later, but that it won't be magnitudes of difference because we installed some now and some later. So I have confidence in Chris and Bo and Regan in terms of the discretion and the judgment that they would use to try to target what the immediate need is, what a reasonable amount of spending is based on the funds that are available to us at the time, and what is and how that will all integrate with the bigger project as it moves forward. And I don't think any of us have any idea of a dollar amount that we could put on that to put around you. And I would not, I don't feel like that would be helpful to limit you with that. But I guess what I would maybe say is, if you don't think it would be too much of an interference with your timing, that if you have an interim proposal that on an emergency basis, we want to buy X equipment, install it at X date, and it's going to cost us however much. If you want to run that by the board before you actually decide to move forward with that, and even if you want to schedule a special meeting to do that, that might just be a way to address that doesn't tie your hands with just an arbitrary dollar amount, but would allow you to explain what the decision is and what the timing is, and give us the opportunity to weigh in. So that's what I would.
Thank you.
I was actually going to say something very similar. So I was going to suggest exactly that. If this doesn't, my assumption would be that this wouldn't prohibit the communication of those things moving forward to the board. And then I was also going to suggest, in the event that there's a couple of concerns raised, that I would say that could potentially trigger the need for let me rephrase, I'm using different terminologies, could potentially prompt the need of a special meeting to where we could discuss it more if you felt that there was a need. So so I would think that would be something that could happen if there was concerns raised to you. Would that be fair to say, Superintendent Nichols?
Yes, of course.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go to Director Halverson and then back to Director Jeffers.
I was just going to say that I agree with what Pat said and you, Eric, in terms of board oversight on this. There's no reason not to include them even in emergency decision making. There just needs to be that added piece, I think would be more comfortable.
Sure. Great. Thank you. Director Jeffers.
Yeah, I was just going to add, at the safety forum the other night, one of the concerns that I perceived anyway was when we were going over the timeline about how long some of this might take. If this particular request is passed, I assume what I'm hearing, this might speed up some of that timeline, especially for some of the immediate things we can do, even if it's just a small part of the fix. But the audience the other night at the forum, they weren't too sympathetic with dragging this out bureaucratically out over a long period of time. Did I misread them? And is that this resolution or this motion would speed some of that up, not all of it? Is that correct?
You are correct. One thing I will say is that I definitely heard that sense of urgency and the sense of get it done, and follow through was a need. I will say that the cabling part of the equation that Chris spoke to tonight is real. And so any solution that we seek to find is going to take different pathways depending on that building, that particular spot in the building, and what cabling needs to happen. So quick fix, especially with some of the federal laws around what types of cameras and data configurations we can use. There will be a bit of time here that we do need, just because we have to meet so many benchmarks.
Director Johnson.
And I completely understand that. I think it's hard sometimes for people who have worked in a just all of the limitations involved in trying to retrofit old buildings, just how long it can take. And I'm thinking that it was a really good start last week to in terms of communicating out by scheduling that meeting. And it doesn't necessarily always need to be a meeting, but I think this is a great opportunity for us to to continue to update our community about your weekly communication to parents, or however is the best way to do it. If every week there's a, safety and security update, here's what we're doing, or every other week, or however, we want you to know this is still this, this hasn't just dropped off of our radar. This is, this week we did this, last week, we're waiting for this. And the reason we are not just moving ahead without, as you said, getting the cabling done, for example, is that we have to meet these requirements. And I just feel like this is such a great opportunity to educate and hopefully bring people in to understand what, hey, it's like we're all on the same team here, which was, I felt like really the good message that came out of the meeting on Wednesday is everybody wants the same thing here. There is no reason for us to not be, to not be all pulling our oars in the same direction, and or however many metaphors you want to use. So if I think we can keep that education piece and that communication piece going, and maybe even if, I know in-person meetings are hard for people sometimes, but schedule a Zoom meeting every, I don't know how, in 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, just to follow up with the people who came to the meeting and say, I'll be on Zoom for a half hour, if you have questions and you want to know where we are, let's talk about it. So I just feel like that's the main, you can't be too forthcoming with information. And and I think you were fantastic. I thought Wednesday, your preparation was just, and I'm talking to Superintendent Nichols, it was just great, because it's very reassuring to walk in and have somebody who's prepared to answer. You can't know everything, but you were prepared to answer the questions that could have been expected to be answered, to be asked. And so I think we just keep that up. That's how you build trust with people. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'll just share that I am prepared to vote in favor of this motion as well. This was something that Superintendent Nichols and I had been discussing as potentially a way that can help move things along from a timeline perspective. And I think that's important. I think our community has certainly voiced that concern. I think it's important. This would be a reason for it. But I appreciate what Superintendent Nichols shared about. We're still, of course, going to be thoughtful with the process to make sure that that it makes sense, that we're not that we're being very intentional about what we're proceeding with. Yes, it would be great to have something in place. I think one of the members of our public talked about, tomorrow but I think more of a figure of speech, but that there is some urgency on this. But also want to capture Marin's earlier point just about there are other aspects besides just this, and we want to make sure we keep all items as a priority, including those relational aspects as well. So, okay. Any further discussion before I call for a vote? All right, all those in favor of approving the emergency procurement proposal, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that is everybody. So that passes. And thank you, Superintendent Nichols, for moving this forward. We appreciate your work on this. Okay, that brings us 9.02. I asked it for this item to be placed on the agenda based on a email that I had received. I received an email yesterday from Director Stoffer. Director Stoffer is choosing to end his service here with the swim school board, effective the end of the month, and this being the last regular school board meeting for this month. That would mean he wouldn't be coming back to a regular school board meeting. And I certainly can want to give the opportunity for other board members to comment, but I just want to say that I know that Director Stoffer has been a member of the school board for the last 7 years, but he's been involved with the activities involved in the school since 2002. So Citizens for Swim Schools and District Facilities Committee, among many others, even back from when his daughter was in school. So he has certainly done his part to be involved with the Swim School District in many different capacities, and I wish him well, and certainly gonna yeah, I think it's he'll certainly be missed, but that will does require us to make an appointment to fill his spot. So I will be working with both Tracy and Superintendent Nichols to make sure we complete that process, and we would ask for members of the public to submit applications to fill that appointment. So we would work on that process right away. So to make sure that we still have a 5-person board, back up to a 5-person board as soon as possible. So kind of some news that our policy does require that gets brought forth the next regular scheduled meeting. So that was just yesterday. So I wanted to make sure that to communicate that to the board as soon as possible, and I will forward that email notification out to the rest of the board as well as Superintendent Nichols following the meeting. So Director Johnson.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you for your comments. And school board Director Stoffer has been of great service to the state school directors organization, WASDA, and local Peninsula area district. And he's been very active with the state trust lands and all of the legislative work that we do, which is it's really, really time consuming and challenging, and it's going to be very hard to find somebody, and he did it willingly and eagerly, and I think really valued the relationships that he formed, not only on his own behalf, but also on behalf. I wish him well, and I appreciate the work that he's done. And I will also look forward to seeing, what other people in the community might be interested in joining us on this, in this really great and important work that we're doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Halverson.
Yeah, I just want to say that I really appreciated Jim being so helpful to me once I joined the board. His love of the schools here is really palpable. I mean, it exuded from him at all times, his passion for the schools, and I appreciated that. And I think as Pat said, his work as a legislative rep was really a great service to the board. And so that leaves a big gap with us, I think. I'm really going to miss him. And But I also look forward to meeting our candidates for the position that's now open.
Thank you, Mark. Director Jeffries.
Yeah, I appreciate Jim for all the good things he's done for the school district. I look forward to this process. I think he's District 3, is that correct?
Yes.
So there is a residency requirement that you have to live in District 3. Hopefully we can get this done in a timely fashion, so whoever we appoint might be able to go to the WASDA annual meeting. That would be a very good idea for whoever the new person is. Because you'll find no matter, well, I was an educator for 45 years and I thought being on the school board, easy peasy. And I've said this before, and it's not what you expect it to be. So I encourage anyone that wants to apply, maybe, I guess it would be appropriate to talk to the superintendent or the board president about the realities and joy and frustrations of serving on the board. And I look forward to getting that new person on, and so we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would second what Director Jeffries said. Even somebody that currently working in education, not having the current reality of what being on this, thinking that I sort of knew what it was going to be like, but really didn't have any idea what it was going to be like. So yes, second to that. So so we will continue to or we will get that process underway, and further information to come, and we will publicize that information as well to the public, the timeline associated with it. And if you have any questions about that process, you can feel free to reach out to, I think we had Tracy as our point of contact regarding that in the past. So I think that's probably a good source if you have questions about which area you live in, if you live in the right area. I'm guessing Tracy can get folks pointed in the right direction. So okay. With that brings us to the end. We do have some, as Superintendent Nichols said, we do have some upcoming listening sessions that are out there. But other than that, I believe, oh yeah, there they are. So we have September 21st, September 22nd. So coming right up, and I believe our next, our next school board meeting is October 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. So for our regular meeting. So with that, anything else for the good of the order? Okay, we will go ahead and adjourn for the evening. Have a good night, everybody.